how do you believe the outcome might have differed if the Mongols had adapted their strategies to the Vietnamese terrain? If you were in charge of the Mongol forces, what alternative strategies might you have employed to overcome Vietnam's defensive advantages? Please comment below. In the late 13th century, amidst the zenith of the Mongol Empire's expansion, a monumental clash between the relentless Mongol forces and the resilient Vietnamese unfolded. In 1285, a pivotal moment in history when the Mongol Empire, under the leadership of Kublai Khan, sought to extend its dominion further southward into Vietnam. However, what seemed like an inevitable conquest encountered unforeseen resistance and a series of challenges that would shape a remarkable chapter in the annals of military history. The attempt by the Mongols to invade Vietnam was met with a fierce defense bolstered by the strategic use of Vietnam's geographical intricacies, the indomitable spirit of its people, and a mastery of guerrilla warfare tactics. This clash, framed by the geographical landscape and the strategic acumen of both sides, unfolded as a testament to the power of terrain and resilience in the face of an empire's expansive ambition. The historical records of the exact number of combat forces during the Mongol invasions of Vietnam are not precise. However, estimates suggest that the Mongol forces led by Kublai Khan numbered in the tens of thousands, potentially ranging from 20,000 to 30,000 soldiers or more. It's important to note that these numbers varied throughout different phases of the invasion attempts. On the other side, the Vietnamese forces, under the Tran dynasty, were significantly outnumbered by the Mongols. Their exact numbers are not as well documented, but historical accounts indicate that the Vietnamese had notably fewer troops than the Mongol invaders. While specific counts are challenging to ascertain, historical records consistently highlight that the Mongol forces had a numerical advantage over the Vietnamese defenders. So, in terms of sheer numbers, the Mongol forces had the advantage over the Vietnamese defenders during these invasions. What was the reason behind the Mongol Empire being considered a great and formidable army that won numerous battles against its enemies? Despite their prowess, they faced a challenge when they were outnumbered and unable to defeat Vietnam. Subscribe for regular updates on history's failed invasions like the Mongols' Vietnam campaign. Don't miss out. The Mongols were an unstoppable force, conquering vast territories with their fierce warriors and strategic prowess. Yet, when it came to Vietnam, they encountered a surprising hurdle: the resilience of the Vietnamese people and the geographical challenges of the region. Here are some reasons why the Mongols failed to conquer Vietnam. 1. Terrain as a barrier. Absolutely, Vietnam's geography acted as a formidable ally against the Mongol invasion. Vietnam's landscape presented numerous obstacles for the Mongol forces. The country is characterized by a diverse terrain, including dense forests, marshes, rugged mountains, and intricate river systems. These geographical features made it extremely challenging for the Mongol cavalry, which excelled in the vast, open steppes of Central Asia. The dense forests hindered the mobility of the cavalry and limited their ability to employ their signature swift and coordinated maneuvers. Unpredictable weather. Vietnam experiences a tropical monsoon climate, with erratic weather patterns, including heavy rains and typhoons during certain seasons. The Mongols, accustomed to the dry and arid climates of their homeland, found it difficult to navigate and fight in such unpredictable weather conditions. The monsoon rains turned the terrain into quagmires, impeding the movement of their troops and horses. Strategic advantage for Vietnamese guerrilla warfare. The challenging terrain was exploited by the Vietnamese, who were adept at guerrilla warfare tactics. They knew the landscape intimately and used it to launch surprise attacks, disappearing into the forests and mountains after striking the Mongol forces. This asymmetric warfare, with the Vietnamese leveraging their familiarity with the terrain, rendered the Mongol army vulnerable and unable to effectively counter these elusive tactics. Natural barriers and defensive positions. Beyond the natural impediments, the Vietnamese strategically fortified key positions and created natural barriers. They constructed barriers along rivers and used mountainous regions as defensive strongholds, making it difficult for the Mongols to penetrate and advance further into Vietnamese territory. In essence, Vietnam's geography played a pivotal role in impeding the Mongol invasion. Its diverse and challenging terrain, unpredictable weather conditions, and the Vietnamese people's adeptness in utilizing these elements to their advantage collectively acted as a significant defensive ally, thwarting the Mongol forces' efforts to conquer the region. The Mongol cavalry, renowned for their expertise in open-field warfare across the vast steppes of Central Asia, faced a significant disadvantage when confronted with the wilderness and rugged terrain of Vietnam. Mongol cavalry's strengths and limitations. The Mongol cavalry was unparalleled in their ability to maneuver swiftly across open plains. Their tactics relied heavily on speed, mobility, and coordinated attacks, utilizing their horse archers' skill to unleash devastating volleys of arrows while in constant motion. However, when faced with the dense forests, marshes, and mountainous regions of Vietnam, their strengths became liabilities. Impediments in wilderness. The intricate landscape of Vietnam posed immense challenges for the Mongol cavalry. The dense forests and marshlands restricted the mobility of their horses and hindered their ability to execute their trademark swift maneuvers. Maneuvering through such terrain nullified their advantage of speed, making it difficult for the cavalry to maintain cohesive formations and exploit their archery skills effectively. Vulnerability to guerrilla tactics. The Mongol cavalry's vulnerability in the wilderness was further exacerbated by the Vietnamese guerrilla warfare tactics. Vietnamese fighters, intimately familiar with the terrain, exploited the environment to their advantage. They launched surprise attacks from hidden positions, ambushing the Mongol forces and retreating swiftly into the wilderness, where the Mongol cavalry found it challenging to pursue or engage effectively. Adaptation and limitations. Despite their prowess, the Mongols struggled to adapt their tactics to the unfamiliar terrain. Their cavalry-centric approach, which thrived in open fields, faltered in the wilderness. The reliance on swift, coordinated movements became a liability when confronted with the rugged and unpredictable landscape of Vietnam. The Mongol cavalry's expertise in open-field warfare became a hindrance when faced with the intricate wilderness of Vietnam. The challenging terrain nullified their advantages and exposed their vulnerabilities, contributing significantly to their struggle and ultimate failure in conquering Vietnam. 2. Adaptation and guerrilla warfare. The Vietnamese mastery of adaptation and guerrilla warfare tactics played a pivotal role in repelling the Mongol invasion. Guerrilla tactics. Vietnamese forces, facing a formidable Mongol army that excelled in conventional warfare, opted for guerrilla tactics. They employed hit-and-run strategies, ambushes, and surprise attacks, striking the Mongol forces at vulnerable points before melting back into the intricate terrain. This unconventional warfare strategy proved highly effective against the Mongols, who were accustomed to engaging in structured battles on open plains. The Vietnamese ability to swiftly adapt their tactics to the rugged landscape allowed them to exploit the Mongols' weaknesses and disrupt their formations. Terrain exploitation. The Vietnamese had an intimate knowledge of their homeland's varied landscape. They used this advantage to their benefit, employing the dense forests, marshes, and mountainous regions as cover and strategic vantage points. By leveraging the terrain, they created an environment where the Mongol cavalry's mobility was severely hampered. The Vietnamese guerrilla fighters could launch surprise attacks from hidden positions and retreat swiftly, making it challenging for the Mongols to pursue or engage them effectively. Hit-and-run tactics. The hit-and-run strategy employed by the Vietnamese not only targeted the Mongol soldiers but also disrupted their supply lines and communication routes. By repeatedly harassing the Mongol forces and disrupting their logistical support, the Vietnamese inflicted significant damage and psychological strain on the invaders. This unorthodox warfare strategy sapped the morale of the Mongol troops and eroded their confidence in a swift and decisive victory. Weather and timing. Additionally, the Vietnamese guerrilla tactics were synchronized with the region's weather patterns. They exploited the monsoon seasons, launching attacks during periods of heavy rains and storms, when the Mongol forces were particularly vulnerable due to the adverse weather conditions that impeded their movements and reduced their effectiveness. The Vietnamese adeptly utilized guerrilla warfare tactics that capitalized on their knowledge of the terrain, their ability to strike swiftly and retreat, and their synchronization of attacks with weather patterns. This asymmetrical approach proved to be a formidable challenge for the Mongol forces, contributing significantly to their failure to conquer Vietnam. 3. Adaptation and innovation. The resourcefulness and resilience displayed by the Vietnamese during the Mongol invasion were key factors in their successful defense against the formidable Mongol forces. Faced with an overwhelming enemy, the Vietnamese demonstrated remarkable adaptability and innovation. They improvised various defensive strategies, constantly evolving their tactics to counter the Mongol advances. For instance, they fortified key positions, erected barriers, and strategically positioned defenses in areas where the terrain favored their guerrilla tactics. This adaptability allowed them to create formidable obstacles that hindered the Mongol army's progress. Unity and national pride. The Vietnamese were deeply united in their resolve to defend their homeland. The threat of Mongol invasion galvanized the people, fostering a strong sense of national pride and unity. This collective determination to resist foreign aggression fueled their resilience, motivating individuals from all walks of life to contribute to the defense efforts. Farmers, artisans, and even scholars joined the ranks, offering their skills and expertise to bolster the defenses. Leadership and strategy. Exceptional leadership, particularly demonstrated by figures like Tran Hung Dao, played a pivotal role. Tran Hung Dao's strategic brilliance in military command and diplomatic maneuvers was instrumental in rallying the Vietnamese forces and organizing effective resistance. His ability to unite various factions, form alliances with neighboring powers threatened by Mongol expansion, and employ diplomatic strategies to sow discord among the Mongol ranks showcased a high level of strategic thinking. Flexible military doctrine. The Vietnamese adapted their military doctrine to suit the challenges posed by the Mongol invasion. Understanding that direct confrontation might not be effective against the Mongols' strength, they embraced a more flexible approach, focusing on defensive tactics, asymmetric warfare, and hit-and-run strategies. This flexibility allowed them to mitigate the Mongol advantages while maximizing their own strengths. Resilient civilian support. Beyond the military, the civilian population played a crucial role. They actively supported the defenders by providing resources, intelligence, and assistance in fortifying defensive structures. The unity between the military and civilian populations bolstered the resilience of Vietnam against the Mongol onslaught. The resourcefulness and resilience of the Vietnamese stemmed from their adaptability, unity, exceptional leadership, and the unwavering determination to defend their homeland. This collective spirit and strategic acumen fortified their defenses and ultimately thwarted the Mongol attempts to conquer Vietnam. For alliances and diplomatic maneuvers. The Vietnamese resistance against the Mongol invasion was not solely reliant on military might but also harnessed diplomatic maneuvers and adaptive strategies to repel the Mongol forces. Vietnamese leaders, notably Tran Hung Dao, displayed exceptional diplomatic acumen. They recognized the importance of forging alliances and leveraging regional politics to counter the Mongol threat. Understanding that a united front could strengthen their resistance, they formed alliances with neighboring powers that were also threatened by Mongol expansion. This coalition-building strategy aimed to create a collective defense against the common enemy. By aligning with others facing similar threats, the Vietnamese diversified their resources and military support, increasing their overall defensive capabilities. Diplomatic discord among the Mongols, Tran Hung Dao cleverly exploited divisions within the Mongol ranks. He utilized diplomatic strategies to sow discord and create rifts among the Mongol leadership. By fostering disagreements and playing on internal rivalries within the Mongol Empire, Tran Hung Dao weakened the unity of the invading forces. This diplomatic approach significantly disrupted the cohesion and coordination of the Mongol armies, diminishing their effectiveness in the invasion. Adaptation to enemy tactics. Vietnamese leaders closely observed the tactics and strategies employed by the Mongols in previous invasions. Learning from the experiences of other nations that had faced Mongol conquests, they adapted their defensive strategies accordingly. They studied the strengths and weaknesses of the Mongol forces, adjusting their own tactics to counter the Mongol cavalry's speed and mobility advantage. This adaptive approach allowed them to anticipate Mongol maneuvers and develop countermeasures. Flexible defense strategies. The Vietnamese leadership showcased flexibility in their defensive strategies. They were willing to adapt and modify their tactics based on the evolving circumstances of the invasion. This adaptability enabled them to respond to changing situations and exploit any. 5. Logistical challenges and overextension. The Mongol Empire was a colossal force that stretched across vast expanses of Asia and Europe, yet even their reach had its limits. When they set their sights on Vietnam in the late 13th century, they encountered logistical challenges and the perils of overextension that would test the limits of their conquering prowess. Vast empire, strained supply lines. At its zenith, the Mongol Empire sprawled across diverse landscapes and climates. As they ventured into Vietnam, their supply lines stretched perilously thin. The immense distance between the Mongol heartland and Vietnam posed logistical nightmares. The need to transport provisions, armaments, and sustenance for the massive Mongol army over such vast distances strained their already complex logistical network. Adaptation to unfamiliar terrain. Vietnam's unique terrain posed a logistical nightmare for the Mongols. Accustomed to the expansive steppes and deserts where their cavalry excelled, they encountered dense forests, marshes, and rugged mountains in Vietnam. Maneuvering through such unfamiliar and challenging landscapes proved arduous, impeding their progress and causing attrition among their troops and horses. Seasonal challenges and climate. The Mongols faced the wrath of Vietnam's unpredictable climate. Monsoon seasons brought torrential rains and typhoons that disrupted their operations. The adverse weather conditions bogged down their movements, turning trails into quagmires and making it difficult to maintain their momentum. This clash with Vietnam's natural climate was a logistical nightmare, affecting not just their progress but also the morale and well-being of their forces. Overextended resources and manpower. Conquering distant lands stretched the Mongol resources and manpower thin. As they expanded deeper into new territories, their forces became increasingly dispersed. The strain of maintaining control over an empire of such vast proportions, coupled with the ongoing campaigns on multiple fronts, led to an overextension of their military capabilities. Logistical conundrum and diminished strength. The logistical challenges and overextension weakened the Mongol forces. Their supply lines were susceptible to ambushes and disruptions by Vietnamese guerrilla fighters, further exacerbating their logistical woes. As their strength and resources dwindled, the Mongol forces found themselves in a vulnerable position, unable to sustain the momentum required for a successful conquest. The Mongols, despite their unparalleled military might, encountered insurmountable logistical challenges and the perils of overextension when attempting to conquer Vietnam. The complexities of supplying and maintaining a massive army in unfamiliar terrain, coupled with the strain of an overstretched empire, ultimately contributed significantly to their failure in Vietnam. Enjoyed the video? Hit subscribe and like for more content like this. If you were in charge of the Mongol forces, what alternative strategies might you have employed to overcome Vietnam's defensive advantages? Please comment, like, share, and subscribe below. Your engagement means a lot.